Hi, welcome to Everything You Know About Social Media is Wrong. My name is Joseph Dowdy, and I'm the author of the book Electronic Word of Mouth. And I am also a business coach and speaker. I also, before I moved to where I live at in Santa Barbara right now, I used to work as a small business development center advisor to entrepreneurs and businesses. And I also used to make quite a bit of money doing techie work years and years and years ago. I'm currently an Google AdWords and Bing Yahoo certified professional, and I also provide custom and template WordPress hosting to a total of, I don't know, it's like 80 some customers. And one of those is Marie. Thank you for joining me, Marie. It's always a pleasure to have you helping me with these really great presentations.
You bet. I learn something every time.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that you do. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, this one is about social media. This is part of a 10 session series, and this one's about social media. So let's get cracking. So what is social media? Social media is platforms. In other words, they are networks where you would have a login or some kind of an identifier where you have a profile, where communities of people with profiles share information. So it's a very basic rudimentary definition of what social media is, but it is the number of platforms that combined are make up what we call social media. If there was only one platform out there, it really wouldn't be social media. It would be whatever the name of that thing is. At first, I seem to remember like MySpace was the big thing. It's like people didn't say, oh, social media. They said MySpace because that was really one of the ones that started off with the social media revolution. Mm-hmm. So also there are different features to social media, such as you can create an audience with social media. You can usually block people in social media. It's a bit harder with some platforms than it is with others. What you see in a feed or the display in a social media platform as far as the content goes is usually chronologically based. With Facebook, they use an algorithm to determine what will show up at the top or what will show up by default, but we'll get into that a bit later. These platforms are generally not very searchable. The search function, which if you are accustomed to Google, you'll find it very useful, but for these social media platforms, generally they're not very useful in terms of search. A lot of times they will use other search engines to try to bolster their search capabilities instead of really having their own really good search capabilities.
Okay.
So you can also schedule posting on these as well. That's a typical function of these social media platforms. And also, it's really kind of what Web 2.0 is about. If you've ever heard the expression Web 2.0, it basically means the live connectivity between people who are using different parts of the internet. So before it was called Web 2.0, everything was just plain HTML pages, and people would go to websites. Now, with Web 2.0, websites and information comes to you via what is shared from other people via social networks.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and who knows if there's ever going to be a Web 3.0. I'm sure I've actually speculated as far as what that would be, but who knows if there's ever going to be such a major revolution in terms of Web 3.0, how things will change. I do know that one of the things that I talked about, I've written some blog posts about this sort of stuff, that the closest thing that I would ever say the Web 3.0 would be physical awareness, like Google Glass and a lot of these other devices. Like, for example, if you've ever used Waze, Waze is an app that you use whenever you drive, and people will post information like there's a policeman up ahead or there's an accident up ahead, and it will give you feedback in terms of how fast the traffic is moving. And there are a lot of these presence awareness devices that are built into the social media function
Wow.
of different platforms. And so the nice thing about it is that when you can find a friend of yours who is on a social network or somebody who follows you based on where you are, and you're told, hey, your friend is here, or hey, there's a special going on, or hey, there's a policeman up ahead. If you ask me what Web 3.0 would be, I've written about this, that like that is the sort of thing that would make a next generation web experience for people.
Wow.
So anyways, going on. So Facebook, by the way, is a really great example of social media. It is a behemoth. How do you pronounce that word? Behemoth. It's a behemoth.
I say behemoth or mammoth.
Mammoth.
Big boy.
Yeah. Okay, so Facebook, and this, by the way, I just looked this up, and it's July 10th right now. But as of March 31st, there were 1.28 billion Facebook users. 1.23 billion people live in India, and 1.35 billion people live in China. And I think that somebody had said that, like, based on the stats of where it was going, there'd be more people on Facebook using Facebook than there are people in China.
Wow.
So there are already more people on Facebook than there are people who live in India, and you know how incredibly huge the population in India is.
Right.
So the number of people on Facebook will exceed the number of people in any country. Either it has already happened or it will happen. So according to Facebook, there are over 1 billion mobile users of Facebook. And they also said that 80% of those users are outside of the U.S. and Canada. Now, I'm going to be talking about something in a little while that statistic may make better sense as I discuss some of this. By the way, all this information that I collected came from the CIA fact book and also the press room for Facebook. And that was May 21st when I put this presentation together. Okay, so Facebook is the key to your success, right? That's all wrong. Let me explain why.
I saw it coming.
Yes, you knew that was coming. So here's the thing about Facebook. There is a lot of proof that a lot of the activity on Facebook that people consider to be valuable for business is fake. There's a really great video that you can watch if you go to youtube.com and you type Facebook fraud. There's a guy who makes these really great science videos, and he's a scientist, and he does these really great explainer videos. Very great guy to follow. So you type Facebook fraud, and he goes over in detail how it is that a great number of his Facebook people who like him are actually not real people. They are third world entities that have fake profiles.
Wow.
So whatever value it is that people get whenever they think, oh, I have 5,000 people who like my product, well, most of that is actually fake. And what you want to do is you want to think about whether or not those, number one, are real people, and number two, whether or not those are people who, if you have business, if they happen to be people who might be customers.
Sure.
So you can have just a ton of people like you, but if they're just your friends and they're just liking you because you ask them to, they're not customers or potential customers. Well, then it's just an inflated number, means nothing.
Right.
So and you'll find this out when you start looking at how effective your marketing is using Facebook. Now, all of the things that I'm talking about here are common to other social media as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a good example with Facebook because Facebook is the largest gorilla in the room here. So Facebook, by the way, will admit that your organic reach for your business is about 6.5%. In many cases, it's lower. In some cases, it's actually higher. But if you actually look at any of the statistics for organic reach for Facebook gets pretty low. It's in terms of internet marketing standards, it's so-so. It's really not, it should be much higher, but it's of a significant enough percentage that it would count for something. In other words, people who say that they're successful with Facebook, they work off of this 6% or 10% or 20%, and then they can make money off of it. And, anybody can actually spend money on Facebook advertising and have some traction. Doesn't mean that it's worth the money, because there's so much fake identities out there,
right.
So many fake identities out there, but, it kind of all balances out. It's really a matter of testing it, which is where I'm going to in here. So the organic reach for Facebook was about 12% a few years back. And as you may know, Facebook has gone through an IPO and they've gone through all these different changes. And, basically the way that it works out now is that with Facebook, because the organic reach, in other words, the reach that you would get from people without having to pay them has shrunk down to 6% from 12%. So if you're not actually paying Facebook to spread the word for you non-organically, then you're really not getting much out of it. If you're very good at what you do in terms of Facebook marketing, and you really pay attention to how it is that you're marketing and how you can find the successes that you have and then strengthen those successes, well, then you can do good. But it doesn't mean that just because you put money on it that it's really going to matter. As a matter of fact, I recommend that you test in small increments. My wife has done some tests where we would put $20 on something and make $100 back. But whenever you put in $40, you don't make $100 back. You make like 80. So, it's like you're better off using smaller amounts whenever you test, and possibly in the long run as well.
Sure.
So, something to keep in mind.
Definitely.
So there's this website here that you can see here. It's edgerankchecker.com, which actually gave me the statistics as far as the real organic reach of Facebook. And I think that it was a good article that I read about it. So, okay, so here's something that came from TechCrunch that I looked up. How does Facebook choose what to show in the news feed? So the news feed is like your organic reach that you have. So whenever you look at, Facebook, it's going to show you, this friend and this friend and this friend and their activity.
Right.
And there is an algorithm that they use. An algorithm is just a fancy way of saying that they have mathematically figured out what is the best way to order something or to produce a result. Like Google has what's called the algorithm. It's the search results, how they determine who is number one and number two, etc. So what shows up on your timeline at that moment is determined by an algorithm, and it's based on things such as interest, what the post is actually about, who the creator is, the type of a post, whether it's a video or just a status update or a picture, or different networks, whether it's a tweet, an Instagram post, and also the recency. So according to them, it's these things multiplied as an equation determines what shows up on your timeline. And that used to not be the case. It used to be that the default was just chronological. The most recent posts were the ones that you saw at the top.
Right.
But that changed. And you can change it back to chronological, but you have to look for where to change it.
Right.
Okay. So this is much the same thing that people will tell you as far as Facebook advertising goes. It's the same sort of, lottery thing that we've discussed before, that, you'll get sold on this idea that if one person tells two people and two people tell four people, then the next thing you know, you're going to be, living in Aruba, So, so anyways, it's the whole go viral thing. Nobody can guarantee that you're going to go viral. Something that you post, I can tell you that, I've experimented with this. Some things you post and it's like they take off, and other things that you post and it's like, why didn't that take off? And you don't really know. When you try to reverse engineer some of these things to figure out what worked about them, and then you try to replicate those things. You can't always rely on the results. Oftentimes, it comes down to the time of day that you posted more than anything else. So, bottom line is that you typically have to just simply pay Facebook if you really want something to be shared a lot or seen by more eyeballs.
Sure.
And that's not necessarily the best solution, but if you have been posting a whole month and you're trying to get some traction on something that you're doing, you may just want to break down and pay to have that thing seen rather than try to rely on the organic reach.
Right.
And this is, again, more of the same, win the lottery, sort of attitude that
Right.
I am firmly against. So I did an experiment when I was coming up with the material for this particular slideshow. I paid Facebook to promote a post. The post contained a viral tool. So there's this really great tool that I happen to love a lot. It's called VideoSkin. And it has what's called a share gate. So in other words, it plays a little bit of a video to get people's interest.
Right.
And then at a certain point, it stops, and you have to click a button to see the rest of it.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that button then gets people to share this video with others. So the idea is that you're actually giving them something that for them to get the whole thing, they actually have to share it. So if you ask me, something like that is guaranteed to give you much more success than something without that feature. But what I found is that people don't like to click on the button to make it share with people. It would be better if they just simply liked your page in order to, get the rest of the video. But, it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So the results, lots of exposure, much more exposure than I had expected, actually, as far as the reach goes, much greater than the organic reach. But the quality of leads was not good. So if you have something and you share it and you have an organic reach of 100 people and you have, like 5 people contact you and say, oh, that was really great, can you give me more information? You would think that a tool like this, if you multiplied it by 100 and you had, 10,000 people who watched your video or your offer or whatever it is that you do, you'd think that same 5% would contact you. Right. But unfortunately, I found that really wasn't the case. I ended up only getting about double the number of people that I would have got otherwise. So that's a really low
ratio, yeah.
A really low, what do we call it, like effective action click-through rate. So something to keep in mind. But, was it worth it, though? Considering that I end up getting like 5 more people interested, and one of those people ended up paying far more than the advertising that I was, spending, really a pretty good deal. So this experiment I did doesn't mean that you or anybody who's watching this video should not actually try to do the same thing. I'm not saying this as a way of discouraging anybody. And as a matter of fact, what I recommend that you do with all things related to internet marketing, test it. Learn how it works, test it out, see whether or not the money that you put into it is going to give you more money out of it.
Right.
That's the only thing that you can really do. I don't believe that there's any one solution out there that works for everybody. But what I do tell people is test everything. I think that, there are people who, even that's not true for them. I have one of my customers who has succeeded extraordinarily without even testing things. She just set up a site and, started producing fantastic results just by doing a couple things that she had heard, that work. Well, nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, if you don't have a tremendous amount of success, then, you do need to test different things just to see what works and always strengthen those things. So, but here's what it did prove. To me, nothing really better than, and this is the thing that's so amazingly true. I got more results by asking the people who are the ambassadors of my brand to share about what it is that I do than the thing that I had posted on Facebook. So on the thing that I had posted on Facebook, I got a few people who contacted me, but the level of interest was not the same as the level of interest that I got from people that were referred by my ambassadors. So when my ambassadors spoke about me, people saw that and they go, wow, I'd like to talk to that guy. And, because I do managed WordPress hosting. So I set up people's WordPress sites and I manage them. I take care of all the technical stuff on the back end. I just found out, by the way, there's a company out there called WPFixit.com. You want to know what they charge for what it is that I do?
What?
About $100 a month.
Wow.
And so you know that I charge a lot less than that. Why? Because I'm not a big company. I don't have a bunch of employees that I have to pay. I just, do things the way that I would do them for my customers. And so I keep my costs down that way. So anyways, the important thing is that my ambassadors, when they spoke about me, got me much more traction than this thing that I had posted that total strangers would see.
Sure.
So regardless of what these stats were, anytime that you look at user-generated content, in other words, not just my content that I generate, but content generated by my fans, my friends, my followers, gets me much more trust than if I were doing it myself. If I'm selling something, if you were somebody who didn't know me, would not necessarily believe everything that I have to say. Whereas if your friend said, hey, that guy is selling this thing, you're more likely to believe your friend than you would having it come straight from my mouth. And that's just the fact. It's just kind of how things work. And that is how internet marketing works all the time. So paying for likes can be a waste of money, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that it would. With Facebook, a lot of times you have to pay to play. For example, they won't let you have a custom vanity URL like facebook.com/ and then the name of your business until you reach 100 people as fans. That way they can weed out people who are real and who are not real. So anyways, it's not totally a waste of money, but it can be a waste of money if you're not careful. Okay.
Makes sense.
So if you think about the last time that you were on Facebook and you read something that somebody said and you were like, oh, that's really great. Doesn't matter if it was like a cat video or, what. If you think about the things that you act on, the things that you click on and go and read and spend time on somebody else's site, you saw something that was really great, some Kickstarter project or something like that, you have to ask yourself what kind of qualities were present with those things. So were they personal? Were they professional? Were they industry specific? Were they something that tugged at your heart? Were they things that identified with causes that you believe in? You want to ask yourself, what were those things? Because you want to think in terms of the things that you respond to are the things that the people who are like-minded with you will respond to as well. Think about your ambassadors. So your ambassadors are people who like you, and so they are like-minded. They have the same interest in you. They want to see you succeed. So they are going to help promote you. You have goodwill with them. So, that's something to keep in mind too whenever you're thinking about how to position yourself with total strangers. Also think about your buyer types. Remember the buyer types that we had talked about?
Yep.
So you want to think about how to create what it is that you're sharing in a way that identifies the kind of buyers that you really want. Think about why you're in business. We've went over this in really good detail before about why it is that you're in business is the thing that needs to come first. Oftentimes I've seen people who will do things in order to make money, and it's clear that they do it in order to make money, but it makes them look bad. There's this network thing. I forgot what it's called. It's I don't want to say it's an MLM, but it's kind of like an MLM where it's some rich guy's networking opportunity, and people will share it, and they'll be like, oh, you need to sign up with me because I just signed up for this thing and I'm going to make a lot of money and stuff like that. I can't tell you how many times whenever I see something like that and I see somebody that signed up for that, I think to myself, wow, another person has bought into the same thing, and the same thing happens with each one of them. A month later, you don't see them posting that stuff anymore.
Right.
Because
it just falls off.
It fizzles out, yeah. I mean, they pay their $100, making this rich network guy more money, and then what happens? Nothing. So, you just have to take these things with a grain of salt. Nobody's going to make you rich without taking your money first. So, it's kind of how it's going to go. What's important is to keep these three things aligned: your ambassadors, your buyer types, and also why you're in business. So if you can actually craft something that keeps these three things immediately in front of the person who you're sharing with, then you've got an opportunity to really share something that is more fantastic.
Valuable.
Having your
Sure.
Yeah. And having your ambassador share it is really the best way to do it, because then it's not authored by you, it's authored by them.
Right.
So, any thoughts on all that? We're about halfway through.
No, I definitely understand the unmanufactured shares that I act on are traditionally reasonable quality, and they come from people that I know, like, and trust.
Yeah, it's like one of the things that I have found, and I always find it really pretty interesting. People will, I'll talk with people about how they can do videos, and they'll say things like, oh, but I need to have a really beautiful house, and it's like, no, you don't, that's nice, but are you going to let that get in your way of sharing what you think is valuable? And, people kind of don't understand, they think that the people who are successful are the ones who have the really nice houses, and that's why they make the videos. Well, sure, it looks that way, but it doesn't mean that you should not be making your own videos. If you look at a lot of the videos that people make anyway, it's not like all of them are done with perfect lighting and all this other stuff. Yeah. The lights that I use, I have two lights. I don't know if you can see. I have two lights. These two lights, here's one of them right here. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
This is just a cheap $9 light bulb holder that I got from Home Depot. The light bulb itself is an LED bulb that has the blue spectrum. It's a natural light spectrum. Mm-hmm. And I have tested a number of different, lighting setups. I used to do professional video. This is all you need. I mean, really. What you see behind me is all dark.
Yeah.
What difference does it make what's behind me? I'm in my living room. You can't tell how much my coffee table costs. You can't tell how much my couch costs. Right. You aren't going to know that I don't have porcelain tile on the floor. People aren't really going to pay that much attention to what it is that you have to say if what you have to say is compelling. They're going to pay attention to what you're saying. Now, it's true that there can be things that will distract in the background, but it doesn't mean that you should not share your message simply because you don't live in a house that's beautiful. This could not be done if I had that mentality. I would not be able to share this information if I really believed that I could only make videos if I had a beautiful house.
Right.
So, okay. So You want to build your audience this a smart way. Go back and look at the profile of your clients. We talked about how it is that you can look at what people would call a target market. It's really nothing more than finding a way to determine who are your customers that you have and that you enjoy.
Okay.
Look for groups that you belong to that your ambassadors also belong to. So, for example, my wife was just talking about this the other day, and it totally fits with what it is that I'm saying here. She was saying that there is tremendous value in following people on Twitter who have something in common with people who already buy your product. That's how I would say it. She said it differently, but basically, like for example, people who I want to reach are entrepreneurs. So I follow people on Twitter who are entrepreneurs.
Sure.
Because they will share stuff with their entrepreneur audience.
They're like-minded.
That I share. Yeah, they're like-minded people. So, and when somebody who is like-minded with you for your particular website, they see what it is that you have, they're going to share it with guess who? People who are like-minded with them. So hopefully you will have your ambassadors reaching people who are also like you, because the nature of social media is to share things that you have in common with other people. If you don't have things in common with other people, they're not going to be following you. So the important thing is to have something to share and to think about what it is that you have in common with people that will be something they will receive well, and they will also share.
Sure.
Something valuable. So you join these kinds of groups on Facebook, on LinkedIn, follow people on Twitter who all have the same sort of interests. So if your product is something that appeals to veterans, then you look for veterans groups. If your product appeals to lawyers, then you want to follow, the different people who are members of the bar in whatever different states that you might want to market in. So you just look for people who are in groups or in some sort of way being led by somebody, a Twitter account that represents an organization, and see if you can't produce something that is valuable enough for them to share. So you want to develop a coordinated effort not to take over in that group that you're in, but lead discussions. So ask questions, create interesting questions, have fun, have something valuable, but also have something interesting. You don't have to try to show how smart you are or how amazing your product is. You end up getting, becoming a victim of your own product, where you think that your product is the best thing in the world and you can't understand why people won't buy it. Just try to be interested in what others are interested in. Ask questions. Don't always have the answer.
You have to be a friend to have friends. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to be somebody that people like if you expect for them to like you. So
sure.
Here's another thing you can do. Start your own groups. Be your own leader in your different groups. So, for example, I know that you're kind of in a niche market. What would be wrong with you creating a group in LinkedIn specifically for your industry that somebody else hasn't created yet?
That's true. I'll have to look and see if there's one for females or military or something already.
Well, I mean, for
vaping.
For vaping, yes, because
sure.
that's your main line of work. So your main business here. So by starting something on LinkedIn, you'll end up having a lot of different people that come from a lot of different places if you have something in common with them in that regard. Let's see. Offer thoughtful public discussion to people who sign up. In other words, try to lead the conversation in the group. Elicit answers from people by asking the right questions. What do you find is the biggest problem facing, this? What do you think is the best solution for this common problem? What are the 3 best practices that anybody in this business should be doing? What are the biggest mistakes that customers make? You want to ask questions that get people to answer. Share these conversations with your followers, the same with your ambassadors. Use your ambassador groups to ask, what question do you think would be the best to ask? If you come up with 3 questions and you share with your ambassador group, hey, I'm thinking about asking these 3 questions in the group. Which one do you think will get the most answers? That way your ambassadors are treated special. They feel special because you're asking for their opinion. And then you're using them as a sounding board for what will get the most traction in that group. So your ambassadors may not do all these things, but if you can find some way to get them to promise that they will, then they're more likely to do it instead of just, oh yeah, I'll try to remember that. See if you can get them to promise it somehow. Offer them something special if they will promise.
Sure.
So you want to become a master of this on one social media platform before moving on to something else. So for example, you want to really get good at Facebook before you move on to Twitter. You want to get really good at Twitter before you move on to Instagram. So what can often happen is that you kind of become a generalist with a lot of different things and never really an expert in one area. And that's not such a bad thing, but you'll be more effective if you can learn one of them really well before moving on to the next one. Okay, so then Facebook, LinkedIn. Big difference with LinkedIn is that most of the recruiting world uses LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is really great for professional activities.
Right.
So if you're interested in selling business to business, LinkedIn is much better than Facebook. Unfortunately, with LinkedIn, you often have these times whenever you see a group that you think will have a lot of people that would be interested in your product. But what often happens is it was created by one person who is sort of moderating the group, and they don't always allow people who are offering competitive products to even post.
Sure.
And I have found that to be true a lot. So that's why I was saying oftentimes the best thing to do is just create your own group, get your own followers. And then hopefully by acting more judiciously and friendly towards everybody, you'll end up getting more followers anyway. Make sure that you tie everything together with a blog. So no matter what it is that you're doing, no matter what social media network you're on, you want to make sure that everything leads back to your blog. Why? Because when people get to your blog, they get a feel and a sense of who you are greater than that one thing that they saw. That little paragraph or that little picture, when they come to your blog, they're going to get a better sense of who you are. They're going to read your about page if they're really interested in doing business with you and they feel that they need to get to know you better. They're going to look at your terms of service. They're going to look at all these different little things. They're going to check out your site, kick the tires. They're going to get an impression of you based on your website. No website, no impression. So, and also you want to use your website to get people to sign up for a newsletter. You want to get them to opt in for something, offer them what's called a freemium. In other words, in exchange for their email address, you're giving them something free, like a PDF of some sort. It doesn't hurt to start your own social media network on your blog, by the way. There are tools with WordPress that will allow you to create your own social network where you can have people who come to visit your site, they stay and they come back because there is a social media aspect to your blog. So that's something that's really cool that I'm going to start implementing on mine. And the other thing is to make sure that you use consistent links everywhere. So if you have a link that you share one time, make sure that you don't delete that page because it could create problems for you with Google, and those people would be disappointed if you ever clicked on a link and you go to a page and it's dead. You're like, Oh, always make videos. If you can make videos rather than just posting something, so much better. People, I did this one thing one time where I talked about what it is that I do. I met with this guy who was the head of the business. It's a car dealership, and my idea was to give the employees their own blog and tie it to the car dealership. So the interesting thing was when I went to meet the guy, he says, "Oh my gosh, I saw your video. I feel like I know you." Well, that's exactly the kind of thing that you want to do with your blog. Is you definitely want to have videos. If you have videos, people are going to get a much greater sense of who you are before they meet you in person or before they talk with you on the phone. Because without that video, they're relying on a lot fewer things to form an impression of you. So you could have a video, somebody watches your video, and if you had a bad link on your site, you click on it and it goes nowhere, the impression that they have of you will be based on the video, not on that bad link. But if you have no video, the impression will probably be based on a bad link. So, having a way to win people over as soon as possible is what you want to do, and having a video is really the way to do that. Which reminds me, I need to actually put on my website. I used to have a video on like right at the top, but I've changed my design of my site and I forgot. I need to put that back up. Okay, so and also with YouTube, having your videos up on YouTube and then embedded on your site gives you much greater access to people finding you through YouTube alone. So it's really good. And also using YouTube as a social media network is a really good idea too. Okay. So if you can approach social media from just the standpoint of it's something that you can test, then you won't be approaching it from the standpoint that it's a lottery. And like if you do things right, you're going to be rich. If you can approach it with all the tools that you learned in this entire series so far, consistent keyword-driven messages so that people can find you on the internet based on the words that you use. Build your brand with your ambassadors. Make sure that your ambassadors are the ones that are building up your brand. Joining groups based on your ambassadors. Ask your ambassadors, hey, what groups do you belong to on LinkedIn? Would you recommend that I join them? Get ambassadors to echo your posts. So if you post something, ask them to repost or share it or tweet it. So, these are really good, solid approaches to having your social media work for you and not getting it totally wrong as far as social media goes, because it is super easy. I mean, even Facebook tries to sell it to you, like, oh, you want to promote that post and get more likes? Yeah, like that's not really the game. The game is engagement, getting people to see your message and to interact with you. Like your message is the most important thing. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can reach me, Joseph Dowdy, on my website, electronicwordofmouth.com, or by email at electronicwordofmouth@gmail.com. And before we wrap up on this final slide, Marie, any questions, comments?
No, not right now. I definitely appreciated it, and I like that it's a systematic approach to not trying to do it all at once, just slowly building it up one at a time. So I still have to work on some videos, but that's definitely on the list of things to do soon. So thank you very much.
Sure. And by the way, one of the things that I implemented recently is this approach to doing things 5 minutes a day. So for blogging, if you could take 5 minutes a day to do small things, ask questions on your Facebook profile, get answers, find out what misconceptions people have. This is a wonderful way of finding out what to blog about, what to make videos about. Ask those questions on social media. What is the biggest problem that you find with this? What are the great solutions that are out there for this problem that everybody has? What are the top 3 things that people should be doing? What questions do people have, about this particular thing? What do people get wrong? So asking these questions is a great way to, get answers and to help share your message. So, if nothing else, thank you again so much. And if you, the person watching this video, have found any value at all in this video, please share it. Let people know how long it is. Check to see what the time is as far as how long it is. And let them know that how long the video is, and also that it's worth it if that is how you feel and how you think about it as well. So thank you so much. Have a good day, and take care.